a Dear Media original podcast.
This episode is brought to you by Factor. Now that it's summer, you might be looking for wholesome, convenient meals for your sunny, active days, and Factor is a great option. It has flavorful and nutritious, ready-to-eat meals delivered straight to your door. I've tried these meals. They're good, and it is very, very nice to have them on deck, especially during those weeks when you know you're going to be really busy. They offer delicious, flavor-packed options on the menu each week to fit a variety of lifestyles, whether that's keto or calorie smart, vegan and veggie, protein plus. They are prepared by chefs and approved by dietitians. Each meal has all the ingredients that you'll need to feel satisfied all day long while meeting your goals. And let's be honest, it is expensive to do takeout all the time. If you want to budget this month, Factor is a great option. Not only is Factor cheaper than takeout, but meals are ready faster than restaurant delivery in just 2 minutes. Plus, with Factor, you can rest assured you're making a really sustainable choice, and I love that. They offset 100% of their delivery emissions to your door, source 100% renewable electricity for their production sites and offices, and feature sustainably sourced seafood in their meals. Head to factormeals.com/good50 and use the code good50 to get 50% off your first box. That's code good50 at factormeals.com/good50 to get 50% off your first box. Hi, welcome to Good Instincts. I'm Shira Barlow, but you may know me as the food therapist. Join me every Monday through Friday for bite-sized episodes designed to help you close the gap between where you are right now and where you want to go. This should feel good, like really good. And it will, I promise. I'm so excited to have you here today.
Are you kidding? I am so excited. I love being in your world, in your proximity, in your space. We met and it was like right together.
I know. I feel the exact same way. And it was so excited for this for that reason of like, we met obviously at Dear Media IRL.
Mm-hmm.
And it was this thing where I was like just so attracted to your energy. And I was like,
oh, you so got it. Like, I was like, how did we not like go to college together? Weren't you supposed to be in my wedding? Like, I feel like I literally was like, let's just braid hair right now. Like, this is it, you know? So yes, no, I'm so glad to be here.
Well, thank you so much. The first thing I wanted to talk about, because it was the thing top of mind at IRL, was you were on a panel, which I was so happy to watch, which was all about entrepreneurship. You obviously have an incredibly storied career, and you were talking about asking for what you want, being bold enough to ask for what you want. And I think not only in terms of business, but also in terms of relationships, it's this ongoing thing where I think that people don't ask for what they want. We assume that other people are going to kind of like read our minds or know what we want, but we have to advocate for ourselves. And I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about that and how you got there.
Oh, sure. So I will tell you, I didn't even realize that I was so different in the fact that that has not been an issue for me. I, ever since I was little, have always asked for what I've wanted because it was birthed from a place where I had to ask for what I needed.
Ooh.
And so growing up in, DC in like a less than great neighborhood with parents who were African immigrants that just didn't have, I had to ask because I just, sometimes would have to advocate for them, because they were immigrants. They didn't understand how to navigate certain American systems. Sometimes there were language or cultural translations that being born here in the States and their child, I was able to facilitate. So it wasn't uncommon for my parents to sort of send me forward to have to do the asking at whatever age. I mean, literally, I would be 7 or 8, at restaurant counters or at the butcher saying, hey, this is what they're looking for. And can you do it this way, please? And so growing up and being raised where asking was something that was required so that we could get provision, meant that throughout my life, asking is not something that has been built into fear for me because I know that the worst that could happen is no. And if I don't ask, I've already accepted the no as a partial reality. So because of that, I've been really fortunate to get where I need to go, whether it's through information or resources or connections or open doors by asking boldly. So I teach others to do the same because that for me is not a difficult point.
So, well, first of all, that's amazing. And
I'm
it is very rare, I
Mm-hmm.
think. So how do you, when you're coaching people on how to do
Mm-hmm.
that, what do you tell them if someone's not like, I don't think I only now am I like, would I be comfortable with something like that?
Yeah, most people, I think, are, if anything, I think our society almost trains women not to ask, which is really unfortunate. We're
Yeah.
being told, not just women, but marginalized people in general, kind of, if you go into spaces where you don't see a lot of yourself, you are supposed to feel so surprised and pleased and proud of the fact that you even entered that space. How dare you ask for anything more? That's the energy that so many of us get. So because that's the case, I think that a lot of us have to work on our ask, right? We have to feel comfortable and recognize that we're deserving by sheer existence, because asking is directly connected to worth. So, I do struggle sometimes with figuring out what I need. I think that's the first point that I always try to get people really clear on is, what is it that you need? And can you be honest with all of what you need so that you're asking for the right thing? Because once you're really clear about the need, then it becomes a lot easier to ask for it, because you recognize, like, look, like, I can't move forward until I get this thing,
Right.
So where can I go? So once you've got the need, then you figure out where you need to get it. And then you have to figure out how to make it a win-win, right? So that way you're able to ask for the thing you need. So whether it's in relationships or business or money or self, you have to ask, and you have to ask boldly, or else you're going to stay where you are.
I love that. And I think that it's so helpful to hear you say that, knowing that you have employees and people that come to you for asking for raises and promotions and
All the
things like
time.
that. So when someone comes to you like that, assuming that they are good at their job and are like really have a lot of value, is that something, are you kind of like, yeah, atta girl, or like, there you go, like ask for what you want, or like, I mean, how do you as then
The receiver, right? Of the
Yeah, because
ask.
you're both.
So it's crazy because I am such a good asker, right? One of the things that is tough is you better be ready. And even my kids know this, like, mom is very inclined. I live in a place of yes. I want to figure out how to make things work. I want to figure out how to make sure people are content and fulfilled and happy, and that they feel like their work is meaningful.
Yeah.
But I'm not going to do all the work for you. You need to have some clarity. You need to be prepared. So my kids, I'll never forget, I'm an adoptive mom. So fortunately, I get to like build in a lot of systems that they may not have had before. And when it came to, I want to go to a friend's house, or I want to do an activity, when we reached that sort of stage of their life, they were so frustrated, because I would say, don't even ask if you don't have where you're going, what you're doing, what the time is, who's going to be there, when you need to be back. And they're like, why do I have to come up with this list? And, I just, like, my friends, their parents don't talk to other people's parents, and what, like all these things that they were frustrated around. And I said, look, it's basically a yes if you can just do these things. And I want you to know that these are all things you need to know about people when you're doing. So it seems like I may be being difficult, when I push back a little bit on the ask, but a lot of it is that asking is also training. So when my employees come to me and ask for a raise or a salary, yes, I may ask a lot of questions, but I'm also creating a better employee, because they're learning how to research and prep and pitch, and that's important too. So people are most likely to get a yes from me, but you got to come correct.
I love that. I think that that's so helpful for anyone listening that is kind of in that position where they're like, want something and feel like they're worth it, but they're afraid to ask. But I do feel like if you ask in the right way and you're super researched and you have all the information, then if the employer is smart, they want to keep you and keep you happy.
Yeah, they'll say yes, or at least they'll give you feedback. I mean, I think that's the part that a lot of people miss out on is, if you get a no, ask for feedback on how to make it a yes. And then one, it puts them in the position where if you do what you do, then they need to honor that, or two, it puts you in a position to realize sometimes, I'm not even kidding, I have gone through a divorce, and a big part of sort of preparing for that divorce process is kind of, what do we need to fix this marriage? How does that work? What are the gaps that need filled? And when you have that conversation, you're asking, for what is necessary to get the yes to stay. It really does put you in a position to say, do I even want to do those things? Is that even reasonable? And that's the same thing for you as an employee, If your employer is like, oh yeah, you need to work 80-hour weeks before I'd even consider that raise. Oh girl, if you're not trying to do that, then this ain't the job for you. Thank you for that answer. I am out of here. I don't need the raise,
Right.
So it's just important to recognize that, is there ever really a no, or is there just an opportunity to get more information?
I think that that's so important. It also brings up kind of this ongoing thing that I hear come up a ton, which is like this idea and this need for self-knowledge. Like the more information you have about yourself and what is a yes and what is a hell yes and what is a no, and like, what are you willing to do and what are you totally not willing to do is so, so important. And I remember a therapist of mine in a relationship sense talking about just like all different relationships. Like, I think everyone's allowed to ask for what they want.
Yep.
And like, it's up to the other person to be like, let me sit with that. And you
Yep.
don't even need an answer right then.
Absolutely.
But I think there is such a skill and a finesse to asking what you want, having the right information.
Mhm.
And then, yeah, even if you're getting a no, figuring out what you would need to get to a yes. I love that.
Absolutely. Or if you even want the yes.
Right. Exactly.
I mean, honestly, I think all of us who've ever had our own businesses or whatever have been in a place where we're like, oh, I could have stayed with this client, or I could have kept this person on board, or I could have taken this project. But you were like, that is so out of alignment with whatever else is that I wanted to do, that I don't even want the thing anymore.
Yeah.
And that is such a like beautiful pivot point for yourself, because I think it can be really empowering to honor what you know is right about you and say no sometimes to something that isn't quite broken.
Yeah.
You know, I think that's a really strong point to be in.
You brought up another thing that I obviously wanted to talk to you about, and I'm sure everyone obviously knows about you, but you are an adoptive mom and you do so much. You have this big career. You have these 3 beautiful babies who are
amazing.
obviously not babies anymore.
I know. I'm really understanding more and more the whole, like, when bio moms talk about they're always your baby. Like, I really get it, because I didn't even get them as babies and I still see them as tiny babies to me.
No,
so
it is so that. And but I was thinking about you, and as I was just thinking about this interview, I was like, gosh, she does so much.
I do way too much.
You do. Well, that's kind of my point. I was curious, and I know just the kind of mom you are, and the kind of, partner you are, and the kind of employee you are, and the kind of, founder that you are, that you do 150% in everything. And I was wondering about rest, because recently I feel like I've been grinding and it feels good because I'm really like in a flow with work and stuff like that. But the other day I got home, I finished everything, I got into bed, and I like couldn't slow down. And it was really hard. And I was wondering, gosh, I have not even as many things going on as you do. And I was wondering how rest was for you.
So I think that I'm learning a lot more about seasonality. And you'll hear that all the time, where people are like, well, it's one thing to grind indefinitely, but you want to grind for a season.
Yeah.
But what I'm also learning, like refining that thought even more, that I don't hear a lot of people talk about, is learning how long a season is.
Ooh.
So people will say like, oh yeah, it's one thing if you're trying to build around a goal or do a launch, like you just got to go, go, go. Because sometimes it's like that, but just build in those pockets of rest. Well, the thing that I'm learning is, because I am the person I am, well, all my different aspects of my life have seasons in them. So I can end up grinding indefinitely.
Right.
The kids may be in a certain season, and my personal health may be in a certain season, and I am a finite person. So, what's interesting was coming out of starting, I should say, the process of my divorce. I was in a place where my body had already started kind of shutting down. Like, I was dealing with facial paralysis. My blood pressure was 173 over 153. Like, I had crazy numbers. My health was not good. And I was almost forced to shut down because I wasn't well. So I ended up taking a year off of work.
Wow.
And it's crazy because I'd never done that before, and I had to, for health reasons alone, plus the divorce and relocating and just recalibrating my life.
Yeah.
But it was beautiful because I could decide kind of what I wanted to keep and what I wanted to get rid of. But then now I am another 2 years past that point. And recently I had a flare up of shingles, which I don't know if you're familiar with shingles, but, stress contributes, to it. And that's something that typically they don't see unless you're in your 70s, and here I am, not even 40, and I had a shingles flare up, and they said, look, it's your quality of life. It's your stress, your blood pressure's peaking. So I thought, oh, I'd scaled back, like I reduced the size of my team. I work less hours. I transitioned out of a challenging marriage. I'm thinking I'm doing better, girl, and I'm learning you still have too many things on your plate. So what does it look like now to enter whatever next season you're going to be in and do less? So it's grace, right? And it's constantly recalibrating and that awareness of self. Like you said, I'm not slowing down even though I'm laying down. What does that mean? Not just minimizing that as like not a sign, or just saying, well, it's just for now, but really saying, okay, so what do I have to do differently? And that is, I immediately went into, what do I need to do differently? This is not okay. In the past, I would have kept going and said, well, the time will come where I can. And, the time will come can be when you're in the ground. And I don't want that to be the case for me.
Completely. And I think it's this idea that in some cases, in a lot of cases, rest is productive.
Yes. It's required. It's absolutely required.
Yeah. But I was really thinking about that with you because I mean, without even I knew that you had a hard year
Mhm.
in that whole transition, but just with everything going on, it
Yeah.
is so important. I think the grind is so glamorized.
Mhm.
And the hustle culture, which is like I'm down to hustle. I hustle all the
For
time.
sure.
But I do think the rest piece and being able to actually like lean into that, especially
Mhm.
because the body will choose it for you.
Yes, it
If
will.
you
It will shut you down.
Yeah.
It's interesting because I think that there is a glamorization of hustle online, but now there's almost a glamorization of the burnout. Like it's burnout's become a
Right.
business, where people are
Right.
like self-care, soft life, burnout treatment, burnout recovery. And it's like this trending thing where you have to like post, either you're doing all your burnout recovery where you shut everything down and this is what you're doing, or you're posting your hustle and your grind just to have something posted on social. And it's
Right.
like what I'm really learning from my mentors and my personal life and, all the different content that I consume regarding is it really is a pseudo balance, right? Because nothing's perfect balance, but it's a pseudo
Mm.
balance of no, you're not pivoting between, or I should say vacillating between burnout and hustle. It's how are you kind of doing both in a balanced way? How are you supporting yourself ongoing? And that for me has been the dance that I'm really trying to do is like was my daughter was telling me the other day, she was like, Mom, it's really great that you're able to come to my plays and my shows and
Hmm.
do pickups and like carpool pickups and
Yeah.
stuff. And she's like, but it's weird because you're the only parent I know who works on weekends. And I
Oh.
was like, which is the reason I'm able to go to her stuff during the
Oh, yeah,
weekdays. I have
yeah.
an unconventional
Yeah.
schedule, And so, and I thought about that. And what occurred to me,
Mm.
was, oh my gosh, I can go 15 days in a row without taking a weekend because
Right.
I'll work Monday through Friday, then I'll have like a speaking gig on Sunday or Saturday, and I may not have anything Sunday, but then I'll email catch up and not realize it.
Right.
And then I had no weekend. And I
Mm.
was like, these are the little ways that I can stop, burnout from happening. I don't care if my weekend is Tuesday, Wednesday instead. I
Yeah.
need to have 2 days off every six,
Yeah.
or every five or whatever. So, I mean, it's an ongoing process. It's not just burnout recovery, super soft life. I moved to Bali for 15
Right, right,
days. You
right.
know what I
I
mean?
think that that's really important because I don't think that that's realistic for most people. And I think the
Mhm.
whole thing is like rest, take it easy. It's like, okay, how do you
Mhm.
do that without dropping the ball and
A
having
little bit
kids and the
every
whole thing?
day,
Right,
right?
exactly.
Mhm.
I was thinking about you and your book and now talking about all of this. And
Mhm.
and I was wondering if obviously you've had to hustle for
Oh,
everything.
yeah.
You really have. And I wonder if in that mentality, there is this idea like, I
I've
can't take
thought
my eye
that.
off the ball.
Mm.
I'm going, going, going. If I take my eye off, then like it all goes away.
Oh, yeah.
And
I
I was
mean
wondering if you struggle with that at all.
for sure. I mean, growing up, super poor. I mean, I
Yeah.
slept on a couch till I was 12. And then every single thing I have had to work for or ask for. Like,
Yeah.
ask meaning even just the guidance of how do I
Yeah.
do this thing. And so I'm so grateful to be where I am. But then, there's that nagging thing. And I like to, describe it as the trauma of poverty.
Yeah.
It lends itself to not just, as we hear, scarcity mindset, but also this, I have this thing, when will the rug be pulled out from under me? When
Right.
will the other shoe drop? And you think you can get ahead of it. So it's this latent anxiety, that people will say is your drive, it's your ambition, it's your
Right.
fuel. No, it's just anxiety,
Right.
and that's not healthy and it doesn't support your growth and your well-being. So yes, I have that. And, in my book, Nothing is Missing, a huge part of it is saying like, look, how can you operate from a place of recognize that you don't lack,
Yeah.
that nothing is missing. And really, I mean, the crux of, what I'm talking about in the book is we hear the nothing is missing around money and business and all that, like, oh, believe, you receive, abundance, manifest. But I also mean nothing is missing with you physically. Like,
Uh,
society's always telling you if your hair is curly, it needs to be straight. If you are, I mean, I've been on both sides. I've been, very heavy and I've been a lot smaller. And
yeah.
people have literally said, when I'm really heavy, you need to lose weight.
Yeah.
Like I've had people say, like, how can you even have a business, that we trust if you're overweight.
Mm.
Like it's just weird what
Y-
people will ascribe to, being heavy. But then also when you're small, oh, you're losing weight so fast. What are you doing that you're not talking about? Like all these things,
Yeah.
and just realizing, look, nothing's wrong with you. Like literally nothing is wrong. If you're here, you're breathing, you're functioning, you're doing the best you can, you're fine.
Yeah.
So, and you have everything in front of you to get or be or do whatever you want. Nothing is ever missing. So looking at things and recalibrating, saying, look, if all I have is what's in front of me, what can I do with what I've got? And that has changed my life, completely changed my life. It's lent itself to a lot of ease.
That's amazing. I mean, it really is really inspiring. And I think that, hearing you talk like that, also, I think about another theme that comes up a lot, which is this idea of, you get to a place where you are now. Like, obviously, when you're younger, and I felt like this too, where it's like, yeah, you have to say yes to everything. Like, someone
You're
asks
so
you,
lucky.
yeah, just get it,
Yeah.
get it. But then you get to this point where, you're overscheduled. You have so much, everyone wants a piece of you, this ability to say no. Like we talked about before, like to ask for what you want. What if it's, actually, I love you so much. I really want to support in some way.
Pass,
I can't come to your whatever. How are you with that?
So not as great. I have my weak points, so my kids know they're a weak point, like my sister knows she is a perpetual weak point. Like I have certain people in my life who can they can definitely push those boundaries, right? So to be clear, I have learned, especially in business, the strategic no, which is this may be a no right now, so I can say yes to something else, So one thing that I say no to that a lot of people struggle with is it's really important to me to get paid and paid properly. And a lot of people feel weird hearing that, from a woman or from, anyone. It's like, oh, where are you getting off of money that important? But like, no, it is because, for me, money is, I always say, an earthly tool to help me do heavenly good, right? It's just a tool.
Yeah.
But if I say yes to doing a bunch of things for free or at a heavy discount, how am I saying yes to my daughter going to summer camp? How am I saying yes to being able to see her in the middle of the day? So all the no's that I say to checks that are not in alignment with what I'm worth or the work that I'll put out are necessary no's so that I'm able to say yes in the right places. So, I've gotten really good about that there. But then there are some places in friendships where I will tell you, I have really had to work at like, no, I can't let you come to my office and just pick my brain.
Right.
And no, I can't just throw my day by the wayside and listen to your problems or your issues. Or your whole energy is one where it's so negative that I know I cannot spend time with you because I find myself needing time to recover from being around you. Those are so much harder and they're not as cut and dry, right? As like invoicing checks, dollar amounts, so I'm always working on that and I've gotten so much better at it, but they still sneak in there. And there are people I've literally, I hate to use the phrase and cut off, but really tapered off my interaction with them simply because I am not even good at saying no. They're like a weakness, So I just am like, I just minimize my interaction because it's the best way to protect my energy.
It's so interesting because I've had a couple of people come on here that are kind of like very clinical people. Like one was an OBGYN. And, I was talking about like ways to really optimize like health. It was specifically for just like pregnant people trying that kind of stuff. And a couple people have said, like being aware of the energy of the people around you,
real.
Being kind of ruthless about having that be really positive and not in like the toxic positivity place, but like if you're leaving interactions completely drained.
It's a real thing. One of the things that I've started really accepting and recognizing is that there are a lot of mean things I can say to myself.
Yeah.
And we are, we always say our own worst critic, particularly if you're like high achieving or the mom who's like, if you're already looking in the mirror and saying, I hate my arms, even if you have to check that intrusive thought, if you're already saying that to yourself, why do you need people outside of you who are a manifestation out loud of things you're already thinking about yourself?
Yeah.
So if I already have someone in my space who's saying things like, oh my God, I'm always worried about money and I don't know if it's going to work out. And am I a present enough mom? Even if they're saying about themselves, I don't need those thoughts in my head to echo what I may already be worried about, So it's like, I just have really gotten good about that because I can't, like, if it means I'm going to be down to three friends who lift me up are better than 100 friends that bring me down.
I think so too. You brought up another thing about weight, which is I know that you have gone through periods of losing a good amount of weight. And I was curious about where you were with that and how that's been for you.
Yeah. So it's something that I don't talk about a lot. I always prefer to talk about it in safe spaces like here, just because weight is so commercialized. I mean, the top New York Times bestseller books are always weight loss books, right? And I'm always so wary of that because it's that's just not my experience with it. I am really fortunate and, to have really liked myself heavier. I wasn't even really incentivized to start losing weight because I liked the way I look. I didn't have any trouble getting dates, when I was, heavier and younger. And it just wasn't a challenge in that way. It was truly for health reasons. It was my numbers weren't good. My blood pressure was high. I was pre-diabetic. My cholesterol was through the roof. And at the time when I really started this journey, I was like late 20s. So it was just kind of like, I remember my doctor telling me, you're not going to see your late 60s if you continue at this path.
Wow.
And that was just scary to me.
Yes,
Like I was like, that doesn't make any sense, So for me, that journey has been, I've lost and gained 30 to 60 pounds 2 or 3 times, and only to eventually lose 100 and keep it off for like 6+ years now.
Wow.
And I always talk about how a lot of those, I always like to say as a caveat, first thing I did was see my doctor.
Yeah.
And the second thing I did was build a team.
Yeah.
And I don't want to minimize the privilege that comes with having the financial resources to do that, and I always like to say that out loud because people are like, oh, well, for you, that's easy because you had the money. That is completely true. I had the money, the insurance, the benefits, all those things are true, but the mindset around it was free. It was hard work, but it didn't cost anything. So I always like to share that part. In the very beginning, when I started losing weight, or at least looking at my health, and then losing weight was a byproduct of it, it was always around a goal. Like, I want to just get off 30 pounds, or I want to get down to a 12, because that number was associated with healthy to me or whatever. And when I finally started taking it off in a big way, it was the first time I ever attached getting healthy to my purpose. I really want to be around to see my kids. I really want to be able to have more kids. I really want to be able to, I just quit my job and I was like, oh my gosh, I'm opening up this business. I love helping people. I love how I'm showing up in this world. I don't want to die sooner than I want to enjoy this for as long as possible.
Yeah.
And if I run on stage, I don't want to be out of breath, and if I'm doing a keynote, I don't want my knees to hurt because I'm standing for an hour. It's just very practical.
Oh, I love that.
And that practicality, I think, made it a lot easier when I talked to the rest of my team. So I had a nutritionist on my team. I got regular blood work, like just really paying attention to the numbers as my guide and not my scale. And when I started working with my team and realizing, oh, wow, like choosing food that helped encourage and give me energy so I could do the things that I love to show up to do now was very different than choosing food to make me skinny or eating restrictively to hit a goal. It was simply, you want to get on stage, you want to be able to have energy to make it through the entire performance. Energy comes from the salad. Energy won't come from that donut. Oh, okay. That makes sense. Got to put the right gas in the car. Your body is a Mercedes. Don't put regular gas in it. Put premium,
Totally. But the other thing with that, which I think is really cool, and I nerd out on this research and I've talked about it a bunch of times, but it's this idea of future self. And there's all this research that's been done that shows that it's really hard to kind of like think of our future self as the same person as we are now, as ourselves in the future, because we think about ourselves as kind of like a completely other person in that way. So we don't save for the future, and we don't floss, and we don't take good care, because it's hard to forego kind of rewards we can reap right now in service of like that bigger thing down the line. And I think what's really cool is you had access to that future self. And for a lot of people, having kids and really wanting to be there and wanting to be at weddings and graduations and all those things really help connect us to that future self. So I think that's so cool.
Oh, for sure. I mean, like, I still struggle with delayed gratification. I want it now. I want it today. I get frustrated. But a lot of it, I think, also is bringing my future self closer. So, when it comes to my health, I had a very strong understanding that the future is really not promised. And I think that's something that a lot of us take for granted. So we think of, oh, well, I don't need to lose weight because I can do it later, or I don't need to save money because I can do it later. I want to be abundantly clear. Later is really not promised. So I could feel in my body, that, oh, my heart could give out tomorrow. I knew, I'll never forget the moment. And I've talked about it, in other chats, like on my podcast and stuff, like, when I went to go and get on stage, I was at a speaking event in Boise, Idaho. And you can actually see, if you ever want to Google, you can actually see the video and validate. I was at my heaviest. I was just shy of 300 pounds. I may have even creeped over it at that point. I don't know. But the stage was further away from the entrance than I thought it would be. And my whole thing was run on stage. The music's playing, pumping, and I do my speech. Well, I could not catch my breath for probably the first 5 minutes of this. And if you've ever been heavy before, and I don't just mean like, the workout can't catch my breath where it's like normal. I'm talking about the type where your heart is thumping. You cannot, I was truly concerned that I would pass out on the stage. while also trying to do my keynote.
Right.
That feeling of, am I going to die in front of all these people? That was present. That wasn't my future self, you know? And when I started realizing, and I realized this even, I mean, again, that was almost 8 years ago now, you know, but even now when I get a diagnosis of something like shingles, that's typically given to, they tell people 65 and over to get their shingles vaccine. That brought my future 65 self right into that room today with my late 30s self. These are all the little teeny tiny signs that your body's telling you today that like you're experiencing what your future self will experience in a greater, bigger way. So it becomes a lot easier for me to say, what do I need to change now? Because I can get those benefits today.
I love that so much. Nicole, I could talk to you for hours and hours and hours.
I know.
Thank you so much for being here. Where can we find you?
Well, you are the best. Thank you so much. You can find me all around the internet at Nicole Walters. You can pick up my book at any major bookseller site, Barnes & Noble, Amazon.com. It's called Nothing Is Missing. And you can listen to my podcast, the Nicole Walters Podcast.
Thank you so much.
Oh, you're the best.
You're the best. Thank you so much for listening to Good Instincts, hosted and written by me, Shira Barlow. You can find me on Instagram at Shira_RD. Good Instincts is a Dear Media daily. This episode is brought to you by Factor. Now that it's summer, you might be looking for wholesome, convenient meals for your sunny, active days, and Factor is a great option. It has flavorful and nutritious, ready-to-eat meals delivered straight to your door. I've tried these meals. They're good, and it is very, very nice to have them on deck, especially during those weeks when you know you're going to be really busy. They offer delicious, flavor-packed options on the menu each week to fit a variety of lifestyles, whether that's keto or calorie smart, vegan and veggie, protein plus. They are prepared by chefs and approved by dietitians. Each meal has all the ingredients that you'll need to feel satisfied all day long while meeting your goals. And let's be honest, it is expensive to do takeout all the time. If you want to budget this month, Factor is a great option. Not only is Factor cheaper than takeout, but meals are ready faster than restaurant delivery in just 2 minutes. Plus, with Factor, you can rest assured you're making a really sustainable choice, and I love that. They offset 100% of their delivery emissions to your door, source 100% renewable electricity for their production sites and offices, and feature sustainably sourced seafood in their meals. Head to factormeals.com/good50 and use the code good50 to get 50% off your first box. That's code good50 at factormeals.com/good50 to get 50% off your first box.